And welcome back to another Econ Podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this Econ Podcast, we're going to continue to talk about the ideas of absolute advantage and comparative advantage. We said on the previous podcast that absolute advantage is the ability to produce more of a good than other people produce. But what we really care about is, as economists, is we care about comparative advantage, and that is who is the lowest opportunity cost producer of a good. And the reason why we care about that is now going to allow us to say some things about specialization and trade, and that's the goal of this video, is to talk about specialization and trade. So let's go back to the example that we were working on the previous podcast. And on the previous podcast, we calculated the opportunity cost for A to make a sweater and the opportunity cost for A to make a chair. We calculated the opportunity cost for B to make a sweater and for B to make a chair. And then we figured out who's the lowest opportunity cost producer of sweaters. And we said A could produce sweaters at a lower cost than B because he gives up fewer chairs. So we said he had the comparative advantage of producing sweaters. And then person B, he had a lower cost of producing chairs because he only gives up a sweater when he makes a chair, and A gives up 3 sweaters to make a chair. So we said B has the comparative advantage of making chairs. And now what we want to do is we want to say we're going to follow this rule of specialization that I mentioned on another podcast, and that was the idea that people are going to specialize in the production of the good for which they have a comparative advantage. They're going to specialize in the production of a good for which they have a comparative advantage. Okay? So that means, when I say specialize, that means the only thing you're going to do is produce one good, and then you're going to trade for the other good. So let's see what that would look like for A and B. So we said that person A has a comparative advantage in the production of sweaters. So that means he's going to specialize in sweaters. And that's what I'm going to show on the chart down here. A is going to specialize in the production of sweaters. So that means all A is going to do all day is make sweaters. Well, if that's all he does, because he has a comparative advantage making sweaters, so he will specialize in the production of sweaters. Well, the first half of the day, he'll make 6 sweaters. And then the second half of the day, he'll make 6 more sweaters. So he won't make any chairs, okay? He's going to specialize in sweaters. So he's not going to make any chairs. So that means that in a day, he can make, 6 sweaters in the first half of the day, 6 sweaters in the second half of the day. He can make in one day 12 sweaters. And I'm just going to add here down below, he will make 0 chairs. He will not make any chairs. That's what specialization means. And then what about person B? Person B, what's he going to do? Well, person B, he has the lowest opportunity cost of producing chairs, so he's just going to make chairs all day. So he's not going to spend any time making sweaters. So in the first half of the day, he can make 2 chairs, and in the second half of the day, he can make 2 more chairs. So in one day, he can make 4 chairs, and he'll make 0 sweaters. He'll make 0 sweaters. Now, let's first see what happens here to total output in society. So without trade, total output used to be A made 6 sweaters, B made 2 sweaters, they made 8 sweaters total. A made 2 chairs, B made 2 chairs, they made 4 chairs total. Okay, that was in a state of autarky. That was in a state of no trade. That was before they could specialize. Now when they specialize, look what happens. When they specialize, A makes 12 sweaters in a day, B makes 4 chairs. So that means total output at the end of the day, A made 12 sweaters, B made 0. So total output for sweaters was 12. A makes 0 chairs, B made 4 chairs. At the end of the day, we have 4 chairs. So now, notice what happens. We are able to produce more as a total society. A and B now can produce 12 sweaters and 4 chairs. They used to make 8 sweaters and 4 chairs. Now, between the two of them, they can make 12 sweaters and 4 chairs. That's the advantage of specialization. But we need to add trade to this, because otherwise, if we specialize without trade, then A just has 12 sweaters and he doesn't have any chairs, and he might like chairs. And B, he would have 0 sweaters and 4 chairs. So he would have all chairs. He might want some sweaters. So we have specialization. That allows us to produce more. But now we have to allow these guys to trade. So what is trade going to look like? So let's say trade's going to look like this. So let's say A says to B, I will give you, here's our trade. A says, I will give you 5 sweaters, and in return, B will give A 2 chairs. So A will specialize in sweaters and trade 5 away. B will specialize in chairs and trade 2 away. So now here's the real question. This is what we really care about in society is not what we can produce. I mean, that matters. But what we really care about is what can we consume? What is our consumption? That's what we really care about. So look what A is going to consume. He had 12 sweaters. He traded 5 away. So A will be able to consume 7 sweaters. What about B? What about A with chairs? A used to get, he produced 12 sweaters, so he had 0 chairs, but he's going to get 2 chairs in the trade. So he's going to get 2 chairs from B, so he's going to get to consume 2 chairs. Now notice this. Here's the enormous advantage. If A by himself does not trade with anybody else, he could produce and consume 6 sweaters and 2 chairs. But with specialization and trade, he can consume 7 chairs. 7 sweaters and 2 chairs. That's more than he could do by himself. Okay. In fact, A could not produce seven sweaters and 2 chairs by himself. He can only produce 6 and 2. So we would say that A can now consume beyond his ability to produce. And that's pretty cool for person A. How about person B? Person B, let's see, they're going to produce 0 sweaters, but they'll get 5 sweaters in a trade from person A, so they'll get to consume 5 sweaters. And let's see, person B, they produced 4 chairs, but they traded 2 away, so person B will get to keep 2 chairs for consumption. Now, what if B just, produced and consumed sweaters and chairs by himself without trading? He could produce 2 sweaters and 2 chairs. Now he gets 5 sweaters and 2 chairs. So B is also able to consume beyond his ability to produce. And so that's pretty cool. Notice what has happened here. Both A and B, by specializing in trading, both of them can consume beyond their ability to produce. That's the key phrase. Both of them can consume beyond their ability to produce. And we will talk more about this on another podcast. So with specialization trade, both of them can consume beyond their ability to produce. This has been Mr. Hagan on another Econ podcast. Thanks for joining me, and we will see you on the next podcast.